Welcome to another OCD Recovery YouTube video. I thought I'd come on here to talk a bit about the topic of facing fears and taking that action now. So the reason that's important to cover is because if you think of something like an addiction, so somebody, let's say they're alcoholic, right? And they want to go sober, they want to give up, they've decided that's what they want to do, okay? Now, how likely do you think it is their brain is going to go like this? Just wait till next week because you've got your friend's birthday coming up and there'll be lots of drinking there. So why don't you give up next week? Or I think I'm not in the right frame of mind because some of my family have gone away this week. So therefore, it's not a great time to do that, right? That's what someone's going to think. Okay, if they're alcoholic, they're going to think, oh, now's not great because I haven't got the best support, or oh, I've got a new job coming up. I don't want to put myself under too much pressure. I'm going through a lot of anxiety at the moment. All those kinds of things. Now, that delay of I'll do it tomorrow is like when we're at school. I'll do my homework tomorrow. It never gets done. And that is exactly the same with OCD recovery, okay? With OCD recovery, if you do not want to feel discomfort. Now, is there discomfort involved in OCD recovery? Yes, absolutely. There is discomfort involved with OCD recovery. So you're not going to get through the journey without that discomfort. We see this specifically with contamination OCD. That one mainly is the one where it's got so many hurdles of little hurdles or big hurdles of overcoming fears, because it's usually got into their whole life and their whole framework of how they're living, like it did for me when I had it relating to cleanliness and sort of using so much shower gel, being in the shower for hours and hours a day. That had then taken over everything. If I touch this, then that's contaminated, and it's that sort of big mental sort of spider web of all the things you can't do because OCD has now got into all areas of your life, right? Now, always you're going to put that off and be like, oh, not today, I can't do that. Oh, that's too much, because if I do that and I touch that thing, I will then contaminate something else, right? Even there where I touch my nose, like that, when I had contamination OCD, I would literally be thinking, oh, if I touch my nose and then I touch this, what if I have COVID and then I've spread that? And then what happens if I actively did that and then touched the chair because I did that knowing that I was going to do that, contaminating my family with COVID on purpose, and then it was going to move around and do that stuff all the time because that's the nature of how it operates, okay? So OCD is going to do that. Now, in that instant, the person has got to get used to making mistakes, touching things, taking the risk. Oh my God, what if that's dangerous? You can't live in a mental spider web caged in where you can't even function. You're going to have to take risks. Somebody with contamination OCD, forgetting COVID, leaving COVID out of it, wouldn't even want to do that because they would think doing that in certain cases, what happens if I have flu but I don't know I've got it? What if, that kind of stuff. I have some kind of seasonal allergies sometimes, but if I had OCD, it would be like, oh, what if you're then contaminating this or contaminating that, and then all these different things going on. And that's how OCD operates. So you've got to break that cycle. You've got to take the risk, making a mistake, not thinking. It's always going to tell you should have thought 1 second before you just did the thing. Oh, you're being too careless. Oh, you took too big a risk. What if that's dangerous? Oh, you did too big an exposure. What if you've made yourself too anxious and you're never going to get better? All kinds of things like that is what it's doing 24/7. And I can't highlight that enough. How many contamination OCD recovery journeys never happen because the person goes, that one's too hard, or I can't cross that. All day long I see that. From a thing like, oh, if only that thing that washing line, the clothes had been done today differently, then I could do that exposure. There's always an excuse. So you've got to break these things down. You've got to feel the fear. You've got to feel the discomfort. You have to do that because otherwise you are not going to progress forward. There is a million excuses why you can't do it. It's the same as reaching out for help. Oh, I can't do it now. I'm too busy with my job. I'm too busy with my kids. Oh, I'm not that bad at the moment. You need to reach out because the thing is, there is always an excuse. And there is always a reason. If you're coasting, you've been going along stuck in the same position, reach out if you're not progressing. You got to, because otherwise you're not going to make change. And that is so key to remember because there is so many mental obstacles. And the mental obstacles are usually I haven't got time, I'm anxious enough already, I don't want to put myself through more anxiety. These are the natural steps that you need to overcome in the recovery journey. This is what is involved in getting better, okay? I didn't recover with an easy journey. There was loads of difficult exposures. Sometimes you have to take leaps at times. Sometimes you have to do exposures that are difficult. Sometimes you have to do exposures that are much more difficult than you want to do in that moment because there's not an easier, lighter one, okay? Because what's going to happen to you is you're going to keep looking for smaller ones on the hierarchy. Oh, I just need a little one, then I can progress. Oh, isn't there one smaller? No, there's not always a smaller one. Sometimes you're going to have to take a leap. You're going to have to white knuckle it. That is so key. But what if it makes me worse, anxiety? It won't make you worse. It's just anxiety. Think about how many times you've had anxiety, different times, up, down, triggered, middle of the night, triggered, whatever. You didn't die. It didn't break your brain. But it feels scary in that moment and you're going to have to go into that, okay? That is absolutely crucial. It's like saying, oh, I really want to start and build a business. I've watched all these TikTok entrepreneur videos, but I want to do it comfortably and I only want to work 2 days a week because I watched some video that said you can become a millionaire with 2 days work a week. This is crap, right? No, nothing in life that you really want to achieve can be done with very little input. If it was, you'd see people achieving all kinds of things with very little input. You wouldn't think to go out and be one of the best runners in the world, running the 100 meters, the fastest of all time with 2 hours work a week. Everything takes work. OCD recovery takes work. OCD recovery takes facing fears. It's tricky at times. It's tricky. Some journeys are much easier. Some journeys, they do a bit of exposures, work a bit on beliefs, and off they go. Some others need a lot of work. Mine was one of those. Bloody difficult at times, right? And that is so key to remember that, because otherwise what you're doing is you're setting yourself up with unrealistic expectations of what's involved. You're not going to just skim the books, do the odd exposure and recover. We know that because most forums are full of people still stuck. Why? Because people underestimate what recovery takes. Most experts underestimate what recovery takes. Most, okay? So it's very, very key to remember that, okay? You need to work through breaking down fears. You will usually need to face fears. You will usually need to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. You will need to do all these things, okay? These are all crucial on the recovery journey. And you can't find a quick way around that. People ring me up all the time and say like, Rob, I really want to recover. I really want to work with you, but I just don't want to do exposures. Is there another way around it? No. There is going to be times where exposure is necessary. Some journeys don't involve exposures. Nick, for example, who's a big speaker on this channel, he had sensory motor. His exposure was just feeling the sensations of his saliva. That was his fear. There wasn't an outward exposure that he needed to do. He needed to cut compulsions, but there wasn't an outward exposure. Some other people, it's tons of exposures. Contamination, for example, involves loads. That's not a problem. That's a benefit. Exposures really get in there for lots of things. There's not always an exposure for everything. That's what used to frustrate me because I got so far and then I thought to myself, oh my God, I wish there was more exposures. That's so easy. Just do something and then you get relief and then do something. And then I was compulsively chasing exposures. That becomes a problem as well, because then the person becomes disheartened. That's why when you hear people say, oh, exposures are the gold standard. Yes, they're very helpful, but they're certainly not all of it. It's crazy that statement is like made out like that's all there is to OCD recovery, because then everyone who's done them and isn't better thinks fucking hell, I haven't recovered, I must be treatment resistant. They think that, or they think, or they then feel completely lost and not knowing which way to go, and it just sets up unrealistic expectations. All an exposure is facing fear and seeing that it's not as scary as the brain imagines it to be with an illusion of fear. That is a part of normal life. That's a normal part of rational thinking. We've called it exposures, okay? It's just facing fears. It's just going about life towards things that we think are scary and carrying on, okay? That's what it is, and cutting out compulsions whilst doing so, okay? Doing something, cutting out compulsions and feeling it, right? Now, The problem in life is common sense isn't that common. So therefore, it's very easy to misinterpret things. And so you see things like exposures is all there is needed for OCD recovery. Well, it's obviously not all that's needed, because otherwise every forum would just literally say this. I did this exposure, recovered, January the 2nd, 1996. I did this exposure, recovered, never had a problem again. No. And also when you hear things like saying like, oh yeah, you can get rid of OCD so that you don't have it anymore. You can't, okay? You can't do that. Like, if I go to the kitchen now, I turn on the hob and I check it 5 times, I will feel the OCD try and pull back on that. If I go and do that, even I'm rational, I don't have chronic guilt, chronic anxiety, intrusive thoughts have lost their intrusiveness, I will feel that. It's 6 checks, because I am pretty sure that there is some genetic component, usually, whether it's activated by genes or environment that activates it, whatever, that's still there. The same as an alcoholic in sobriety. I view myself as someone who's recovered, but I still view myself the same as someone who's an alcoholic, that I'm recovered, but I've got to be aware I could slip up, right? That means I can't tell that I've got it. It's like a factory reset in the head. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't get back to those ways if I started going along with compulsions and avoidance. I probably could get stuck with lots of avoidance compulsions if I did. Rationally, it probably wouldn't have the same fear, I imagine, but I wouldn't count on, if I just started checking the door. I know for a fact that when I've left the house here, even in the last couple of years, sometimes I'm going to some special thing, and I think, oh, just check that door once, and I've checked the door 3-4 times. I thought, fuck, I'm gone back into an OCD cycle here. Doesn't matter if the house gets burgled, doesn't matter if the house burns down, walk out the door, off I go, and then I forget it. I leave that discomfort there, and off I go. But being aware of that's key. It's like saying with alcoholics, and I've met many alcoholics over the years and spoken to them, ones that have said, you know, Rob, I think I'm pretty good now. I think I could have the odd glass of wine. I've got it balanced. Every single one of them that I have met and spoken to, and I've spoken to, like I said, a lot of them, those guys have relapsed really badly, right? Because they start off, yeah, I did 1 glass of wine, all right. Then 1 glass of wine, all right. Then 2. Then, oh, I thought I'd try a cocktail. Then, how are you doing? Not so great, right? So these things fuel the cycle. If I check that door 10, 20 times today, and then I do it tomorrow and I do it the next day, it's going to start getting into all areas. We know that. It's like when I go on holiday and I think about passport and I check the passport. It feels life and death sometimes, that feeling. Even though I'm rational and I'm thinking, this ain't life and death. I feel it and think, shit, that feels life and death. Because that's how it grips in there. It does that for people without OCD. But to think that, oh, I haven't got OCD, I've recovered. And I imagine people with OCD, I'm somebody who's, you know, a pretty robust recovery story. So if it's happening to me, of course it's going to happen to people earlier on. And of course it's going to happen to anyone. It's very easy. So be aware of that. When you hear things like, oh, you can just be completely gone. Usually people who are saying that don't want to believe that the thing can stick around. They want to sugarcoat it and tell themselves, no, it's gone. It's completely gone, because they don't want to believe in it. The same as alcoholics who think they can drink again often don't want to even admit and believe they're alcoholic. So that is so key to remember. And that's what I wanted to come on here today to talk a bit about, you know, taking action, going for it. You only live only once, go for it, break down those fears, face fears, do the works on beliefs, breaking down irrational beliefs, get comfortable with the discomfort, bring it for the ride. Go for things today. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Life's too short. You've got about 17 hours a day to shape your life each day. So use it. Don't think next week. It never happens. It's the same as the guy who says, oh, I'm going to start this business idea next week. He never does. The same with the people who talk about all different ideas of things they want to do, never do them. That's 99% of people, especially with social media these days. You scroll through TikTok, most of the stuff that you see on there is a load of crap, and it's just all this stuff of people telling ideas of fake stuff all day long. And like, when you look at that and you just think, well, substance, being real, going for it, doing things that actually get results, that's the most important. And exposures, you know, exposures and facing fears or breaking down beliefs, reading, things like that are proactive. People talk about doing them, but don't do them. I see that in the community as well. People talk and say, oh, I've done this and the other, and the thing that they've often done is not much at all. So it's not about the talking, it's about the doing. Read the book. If you don't understand it, read it again. Don't read it 50 times compulsively, but do that. It requires work, it does. It does require work. I had to do shame attacking exercises in relating to fears of shame, social shame that the OCD was attached to. I had to do those things. I didn't sort of set up a TikTok account when I was right at the beginning of that, going like, I've overcome every single fear and it's all easy and you can conquer it in 1 week, like you sometimes see people say. It's like, well, no, I definitely couldn't. And there was loads of setbacks. There's no problem sharing your story. I'm doing really well, I'm facing fears, I'm overcoming things and motivational, but like often things are sugar-coated and oversimplified and it doesn't show the journey for the reality. It's like if you speak to an alcoholic who's relapsed a few times, he'll tell you a real raw story of addiction, right? Of how he relapsed when he thought he was nearly better or he'd been better for ages and boom, he relapsed there, and to warn people, look, you can. And that's why it's so important to notify people about that with OCD, because otherwise they think, oh, I've completely got rid of it now, that's it, gone, I'm fine. That is a very bad position to be in, because being aware of it makes you less likely to get caught again because you're aware of it. I'm around OCD every day, right? So I'm very aware of it. You don't have to be around OCD every day like me, but I'm saying I'm very aware of it. Before I was scared to be around it every day because I thought being around it all the time would mean that I would be more likely to have a setback because I couldn't stop focusing on it. I was trying to avoid it. So all these little things that we learn along the journey, all these little steps, and we've got tons of videos on that covering the journey and different people's journeys for that reason, so you can see the ups and downs and don't feel bad with setbacks, don't feel bad for reaching out, none of that, because it's a journey that's got challenges, and that's all part of it, and that's why we're here doing this and sharing so many stories of different people with it, so you can see the realities of life and realities of things. It's the same with anything, like I was just saying with TikToks. You got all these videos about people, I bought this car and I bought that, and all this shit stuff that that everything's hyped and sugar-coated, instead of the realities of like, yeah, I had to sacrifice a lot to build this business, for example, someone on TikTok, and that meant that I didn't see my family a lot. And that's a sacrifice. People make out on TikTok that like, sacrifice this. Yeah, sacrifice means you lose something. There's pros and cons, right? So they were distant from their family. They found things very difficult. They had to change different businesses maybe. There's pros and cons, lots of difficulties involved. It's not all rosy. That they worked for maybe 15 years before being successful in what they did. And now it's all this sort of instant stuff and like everything's super easy if you just put your mind to it and ask the universe. And that's a load of crap, because the universe ain't listening like that. I sat there hoping the universe was sat on my bed when I was 16, just looking out the window here, looking at the sky and thinking to myself, oh, can you please help me recover from OCD? Please, can you help me? And I was just talking to the sky. It wasn't getting me anywhere, And that wasn't because what was happening was I just believed that like this shouldn't be happening to me. Not from a religious point of view, but I just believed that this should not be happening, and this shouldn't happen to anyone, and I deserve to feel happy, which we've done lots of videos on why that doesn't work. And all of that was fueling the cycle because I was wishing, but I wasn't doing stuff to get better. I didn't know what to do to get better at that time. So it's so important to be proactive and to do things that get you recovered, not to just wish, not empty hopes. Yeah. Same as scrolling. People scroll all day long. 90% of the world is scrolling, but what are they scrolling? Where are they getting? You've got to take information. You've got to apply that information. You've got to use that to get better. It's like people who watch inspirational videos all day long. They watch inspirational videos and they're like, oh, this guy's motivated me so much and to do this and to do that. And then what are they actually doing with that? Right? Now, that's not criticism and saying, oh, it's so terrible people doing that. I'm saying you've got to put in action and change. That's a positive step. These things they're just air. They're stories of things like, people send me motivational quotes all the time. Rob, did you watch this motivational video on TikTok of this guy and that guy and all this stuff? And I say, yeah, but they're the 10 or 20 principles that have been around in life for a very long time, sugar-coated and packaged in all different ways and hyped up, yeah? And they're very helpful and they really help in lots of ways, certain ones, if they resonate with your mind and get you to think and change. But if you're just watching them and looking at them all the time and doing nothing to be proactive, it ain't getting you anywhere, right? You can go to every motivational seminar in the world. It ain't going to get you anywhere unless you're applying it. You can read every self-help book unless you're applying it. I can usually get most self-help books and sort of write down on a bit of paper before picking up that book 5 principles that are going to be covered in that book, and then look at how they've branched off those 5 principles in all the new books, shoved a more wow cover on the front, and then really simplified something like get over anxiety now, And then that's like in all the books, the same principles repackaged, and that isn't helpful. Right? Because yes, it's helpful if those are the 5 principles that you're looking for, and they're going to help your life, but not if you're reading a book that's a replica of the next book, the next book, the next book with the same principles and never taking them in and applying them to your life. So that is so important. And I have to say these things about things because we live in an era today where people, especially a lot of young people, send me videos on TikTok and say like, Rob, what do you think of this guy? He's really motivational. What do you think of that guy? He's really this. And I say, yeah, there's some great points in there, but like you're missing like loads of stuff. The story's not true, right? The story's not true. Like for some guy's sort of motivational story where he's driving a Ferrari and he's made all his money off a Bitcoin pump isn't exactly the most motivational story. Motivational story is looking at the obstacles that somebody's overcome all through their life. And that's what we admire and think, wow, that's amazing. They managed to do all of that. And I love those stories. I love watching stories where it's like some family, maybe they were running a business. I was watching a film the other day about a family in Cuba that had a cigar business, and about 70, 80 years. It was a YouTube video that came up, but it was actually a very interesting one. And they had a war had broken out. They'd lost their factory, a fire. Then they moved it, and then there was a serious typhoon in the other location, and they lost it. Then they went bankrupt 3 times, and then the family just kept doing what they loved, and their passion at the time was making cigars, and they just kept doing that as a family business. And over a long period of decades, they built this incredible family business, and they were always just very passionate about what they were doing. And that's why passion is so important in things, because it's the passion, that energy you're putting into something that makes the change. But if you're not got that passion, if you're not doing that, then when all those hard times come, you're going to lose motivation and drive. So many people are motivated on a night out after watching a video on TikTok and a few drinks and super motivated, but it's about the consistency, the motivated day in, day out, when it's raining, when no one's listening, when it's failing, when it's doing this. That's what motivation and drive and habit forming, consistency, persistence is key. And that is the same for OCD recovery, because no one's going to know that you're even recovering in the outside world who hasn't got OCD. They won't know anything about the journey. You're going to be walking it alone, right? And it gets tough at times. And even when I recovered, it was like I'd run a race that nobody even knew I'd entered, right? Because that's how it feels, apart from the OCD community who understands it because they're going through the same thing. So you've got to be aware that in this journey, it's going to be lonely at times, and you're going to need persistence, and it's good to have support around you and people that are going through the same. And you've got to realize you're going to have ups and downs, a roller coaster like ride, and that's what's going to happen. That's the reality of it. And that is the message for today. And I'm going to end it here just in case, because I can't see how much battery's left, and I don't want it to end after I've just done this video. I can accept that when that happens, but it's bloody annoying. So you've got to think about persistence. You've got to think about one day at a time, and you've got to ride across those bumpy roads, across those hurdles. And you can do it. There's hope. You can recover 100%. You can go for it. You can do it. You can start today. You can overcome all of that and get going right now. And you just got to think longer term and not thinking for that instant quick fix this second, which we all tend to do. And I did. I expected to have one light bulb moment and everything was done. One light bulb moment, it was all fixed. And it isn't. It's a series of many light bulb moments that get you there. Guys, I'll see you on the next YouTube video tomorrow, because I'm going to keep up doing some more videos because I think it's really important to get out more information about OCD, and video is one of the best ways to do it. So I will be back on here tomorrow doing another video on the recovery journey and recovery process, which needs a lot more coverage on this channel. So we get up to nearly 1,000 videos. We're nearly there. So we're nearly at 1,000 videos. So I think those topics will be good, and I will get back on here tomorrow and do those. All right, guys, see you later. Take it easy.